Welcome to the Player 3 podcast. My name is Rick, and as always, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Tisha, who wants to really spin things up again, like she normally does on the odd occasion. She wants to jump straight at the end and essentially work backwards. So we're starting with Juice Box Confessionals in this one.
Listen, Rick.
I mean,
welcome to this episode, and we are in season 2. We're so excited. Here's the thing, Rick. That is on a daily basis. I just think that we should flip the script every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Well, you flip the script on me every single day. I mean, I don't know whether I'm coming or going half the time with you. But
I know.
You know what? I go with the flow.
Yes, and I think that is the key here. That is the first lesson that our listeners will learn or be reminded of. Welcome today. We have the most incredible guest with us, and I have to tell you that I'm so excited. I've wanted him to come on, and I always believe in divine timing, okay? Like, I really am a divine timing believer, and so I also believe, like, the flow is really important. So if I had forced him to come on season 1, it might not have been as fun, might not have intersected in the way we want it to today. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, which, as you know, our book is all about student entrepreneurship. But I want to welcome Dr. Will, as he is known to everybody. I am going to call him Pastor Will. I just gave him that nickname because I think he has so many lessons and drops of wisdom for educators specifically. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Will. How are you today?
Thank you for the invitation. It's great. I'm at a hotel. My wife and her students won a stock market game award. They came in first place.
Wow.
Amazing.
And we went to the award ceremony yesterday, and I was like, I'm not driving back. So I'm in a hotel right now.
We don't blame you. Where are you tuning in from? What city are you in?
Jackson.
Wow. That's
Nice.
amazing. And how far is it back home for you?
An hour and a half.
Okay, so
that's
not too bad. I mean, in the UK, where Rick is from, an hour and a half for them
That's a long
is like,
drive
they
for
don't
us.
do that, right? But here, I'm in Texas, and an hour and a half is going to get me to Dallas. So that's like a normal day-to-day drive. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast. As Rick said, Dr. Will, we're going to do things a little bit differently with you because we do want to get into some really deep stuff with you, entrepreneurship, really talking to our teacher audience specifically, and then intersecting it with our book and our ideas on student entrepreneurship. But this Juice Box Confessional, we're going to start with that. I think we've done this just a couple of times. There are a couple of guests where I'm like, you know what, Rick, we're going to just flip the script, which I think is great.
Yes.
These are going to be really easy questions, Dr. Will. I say that, but it's going to get you thinking about your childhood for a minute. So you might want to just mentally prepare for that.
All right.
All right. So here is the first question. If you had to survive one school year using only tech from your teenage years, one technology from your teenage years in the next school year, so 26, 27, what would you choose? So I'm going to give you some choices, okay? It could be AOL dial-up, a Nokia brick phone, a portable CD player with anti-skip protection, or your family desktop in the living room or the kitchen. Which one are you choosing to get you through next school year?
Wow. Because I'm thinking about all of those
Yeah.
technologies and how outdated they are. Um, at first I'm thinking AOL because you need the internet, but
Yeah.
I don't know if AOL has enough juice now to do anything.
Yeah.
So I guess the family PC.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
thinking, actually. You know what's interesting, Dr. Will, about that answer? I think that's a good answer. I think we would definitely be frustrated with that, but I am seeing so much, and I've told Rick this probably for the last year, is that the Gen Alpha, Gen Z group, they are leaning more towards some of that older technology and asking for, like my own kids, asking for things like CD players and cassette player and like record players, and they're going old school. Did you know that some of those iPods, the old iPods, any generation of an iPod is selling for phenomenal amounts of money on eBay, and it is those generations that are looking for this technology. So interesting to me. And I saw somebody with an old school Apple computer on TikTok printing out one of those happy birthday posters that we all remember. And you could hear the noise. It's so familiar. Okay, here's your next question. Okay. We're instantly going to transport back to your teenage years and your teenage bedroom. Okay. So I want you to go back in time for a minute, and I want you to think about the sounds that you heard, whether the sounds were coming from a radio or from a gaming system or from your computer. What sounds do you remember hearing from your teenage bedroom?
The TV.
The TV, yeah. Did you have
Yeah.
did you have rabbit ears, or did you have like cable?
At cable.
So I had, that's so interesting. Lucky, what is it? Napoleon Dynamite says lucky.
Lucky.
I had rabbit ears, Dr. Will, and I, no kidding, was trying to watch 90210, Beverly Hills 90210, and I would have to go get foil from the kitchen and put it on my rabbit ears just so it would come in enough so I could know what was going on. That's awesome. Okay. Now, did you play video games as a kid?
I did.
Okay. Now I want you to think back to that, because I'm going to let you tell the story, but here's the question. Your childhood gaming experience, which one built the most character for you? Which one is building your character? Which game?
Wow, building my character. I don't know. I think the one that I really enjoyed was Donkey Kong.
Ooh. Okay. What'd you like about it?
Just the different levels of it and how the game was made. It was, I'm old, so
That's not true, Dr. Will. We do not say that here on this podcast. What did you tell? What did you tell us backstage? You're Gen X with a what? How did you say it?
with a sprinkle of boomer in me. So
Yeah.
my first video gaming system was a Colecovision. So I don't even know how many
Ooh.
people know what Colecovision is. And then my father bought the adapter so we could play Atari games.
Yes, yes.
Right. So that was my introduction to video games.
That's amazing. I want to shout this out because, we have done, I think we did 50 episodes in season 1. We're now in season 2. And I want to tell you that the common themes in some of the conversations that we've had with our guests is their dads. This is a true story. Their dads being so instrumental in giving them these technology opportunities. And we talked about that with Dr. Fonz, who has his podcast. We've talked about it with several people. Rick and I have that common thread. My dad bought me an Atari, and that is what I started with. That's fascinating. I think gaming experiences back then built character in general, because I was obviously with my foil on the rabbit ears. I was blowing in my cartridges to see if something was wrong with them. I felt like I was learning how to do tech support when I was like 8. Right? So I think a lot of our generation has that in common. And it does make our generation a little bit different than the others, especially the Gen Z and the Gen Alphas these days. Okay. So here's our next question. Thank you, Rick, for letting me do this, because this is a fun conversation with Dr. Will. I bet he did not expect these questions.
As always, I'm just sitting here pretty and
I always say,
just letting it roll.
I don't know if you noticed my cup, but I always say that, this is the Play at 3 podcast, and we're going to talk about serious topics, but we're also going to have fun, and we want to have fun with our guests. Our guests are humans. We are people. It doesn't all have to be serious, Rick. I tell you this every day.
I'm just going to say one thing. I want your Stormtrooper mug.
Yes. This is, Will,
Just
did you know on every
off topic.
every episode, if you're watching, I usually pull out a mug that I've never had on camera before, and I'll just drink from it, and Rick will be like totally thrown off.
Every single time.
Yes.
I'm waiting for a vase to come out next.
Oh, that's funny. All right, Dr. Will, this one's a good one. Okay. What do you believe is the bigger social status symbol when you were a kid? Okay, so this is social status symbol. We're kind of talking technology here. So your MySpace profile with custom music, or having an iPod with a click wheel, or a Razr phone. And the last option is a giant CD player, like a giant boombox. So for you growing up, what was the biggest status symbol?
It would have been the boombox because of other
Yeah?
technologies. I was an adult
Yep, me too.
when they
Me
were,
too.
were out. So
But
that's what
you
I
know what,
say.
Dr. Will? Yeah. The Razr phone, though, I think was really popular. I even noticed some adults like really wanting that Razr phone. I never had one, but it's so interesting what people kind of grasp onto and make popular. For me, it was even as an adult, having an iPod was a really big deal, right? Like back in the very beginning. Okay, so let's see. Which technology betrayal has hurt you the most? Okay.
Oh.
Any okay, I'm gonna give you some choices, but you don't have
Okay.
to choose these if you have your own story, okay? But it's just kind of, we're gonna prompt the audience who's listening. So any type of virus, that could be like a LimeWire virus, maybe maybe a Word document not saving your document, someone calling the house and knocking you off of internet. Or this is your choice if you have another one. Is there another one you can think of, a technology betrayal that has hurt you the most?
Slow internet.
Tell us the story.
Slow internet. So my wife and I were in our bedroom trying to watch Benjamin Button, and
Uh-huh.
it just kept spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I'm like, what is going on? What's going on? And I called Netflix
Oh.
to say, this
That's
thing,
awesome.
I'm having problems with this. And they said, oh, check your internet speed.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it and it was like, oh, you don't have enough juice to stream movies. So I had to call Comcast and say, listen, I need to go up.
I gotta watch my movies.
I gotta go up. Yeah. So the slow
No.
internet was just like, even though it was Comcast, which wasn't dial up, but without enough juice,
Yeah.
you're
Mhm.
just stuck. And the crazy part about it is once I got more juice, all of a sudden downloading PDFs and all that stuff just became so much easier and faster.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, you mean to tell me?
You've been living that way the whole time.
Yes.
You
I
know,
was
for me, it's really I think the biggest betrayal for me, and I have this particular piece of technology in my attic. So a lot of people don't know. I think Rick does know. Like if you came to my house, Dr. Will, it would be like a technology museum. So I have
Yeah.
all of my beginning technology, like my very first laptop, my very first digital camera where it was a floppy disk. Right? Like I've got all kinds of stuff. But this laptop, my very first laptop was my dad got it for me. It was I think it was a 1995 Toshiba laptop. And I loved that thing. I mean, like I love my laptop today. I was attached to it. It was a part of my body. I went everywhere with it and made school and college really easy for me. And then one day it just didn't work. One day it just wouldn't come on. And that was before I really knew, oh my God, I should have backed everything up on this laptop. I mean, it was before any of the conveniences we have today. So that laptop is actually in my attic, and I do sometimes ruminate on the idea that I should bring the laptop down and see if I can get someone to at least get in and grab the hard drive so that I can see what was on this laptop, but I haven't gotten that far. But that's my betrayal. Rick, do you have a betrayal, a technology betrayal that's hurt you?
Yes, I have two. One of them was an
Oh.
external hard drive, which was a terabyte in size. It wasn't your solid state, it was your disk one, and I knocked it once. Whole thing got corrupted. There was videos, there was all sorts. Tried to have it repaired. They could only get about like 50 gig from it. So lost the entire thing.
Do
The
you
other
mean because you just accidentally hit it? Like it just
Yeah, accidentally dropped it.
Oh, you dropped it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so they're very
okay.
delicate, those things. So yeah, that was annoying. So I backed things up, but then I destroyed the thing that backed it up, or at least kept it off the laptop. The other one is the old versions of Photoshop, working hours on it because my laptop was so slow to make little changes. And because it didn't have autosave, it then crashed and I
Autosave.
lost like hours of work. Those were
Yeah.
painful times.
Yeah.
They're my two.
Those autosaves, I mean, I
Heartbreaking.
think the kids today will just not even know what life
Yeah,
is like
no.
without
Remembering
autosave.
to click that save button.
Oh, I know. Okay. Well, now we're going to get into it a little bit. Rick and I have some questions, but I'm going to kind of lead us into this, Dr. Will. You were talking about entrepreneurship before talking about entrepreneurship was even cool. And that is really how I think of you. You've been talking about this a very long time, really supporting teachers with building their brand, supporting them with having an identity outside of their day job, which I think is one, super important for teachers. I think it's a great topic. It's great for students to also understand that. There's been a couple of pushback comments I've seen online about why would students need a brand and why is brand important for students and that shouldn't matter. And then you think about just in general, we're all human. And I really go back to that really often on this podcast. We are human beings. We are not one dimensional. We have multiple talents, multiple ways of presenting ourselves to the world and showing our skills. And I think, for teachers, a lot of times they're put in a box. So I want you to tell me a little bit about how did you even get to talking about this topic? How did this become your passion?
Well, I've always enjoyed business and have been fascinated by it. I just never majored in it because when I went to look at the college catalog, to major in finance, you had to take up to Cal 3. And I was like, well, that's not going to be me. So I won't be majoring in business. But time went on, and again, I'm still watching movies about business, reading these biographies or whatever. And I remember uh, first having someone come to me, and because I had been on the conference circuit, like a lot of us are, someone asked me, "Hey, how much would you charge?" And I'm like, I don't know. And so after that, I called up Eric, and
Yeah.
Eric was like, "All right, many factors come in, but don't go lower than this." He said, "Because you
Do you
don't
want to
want to
shout out
mess."
Eric? Which
Or
Eric are we talking
Eric
about?
Schenniger.
Okay, there we go.
Eric
I
Schenniger.
knew
Yeah,
you had a shout out there. Okay, yeah.
yeah, right. And he said, "Do not go lower than this because that's going to mess up future money." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, cool." Nothing happened from that, but a few years later, I am just in a lobby at a conference, and an assistant superintendent said, "Hey, we were just talking about what I did for the district," and he said, "Now, this is something that you do outside of it?" I was like, "Sure." And he came to one of my sessions, and I was like, "Oh, is this a job interview?" And he was like, "Yeah." And after my session, he was like, "We'll be in touch."
Mhm.
And I got my
Mhm.
first gig.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is, I went, they took me out to lunch, and then I got my check. Now, when I get my check, it's almost what I make in a month
Yes.
Mhm.
for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, I love this." But I don't put a lot of, intention behind it. And it
Mhm.
isn't until uh, in a Slack, a guy I used to work with, he says, we're planning our 2-week teacher boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're going back and forth. And I said, "Listen, I need to meet this teacher. When I'm done, I'll come see you. We can finalize." Then the then tech director said, "Uh, before y'all do that, we need to meet." And I was like, "Uh-oh, something wrong."
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mhm.
he's generally like hands off with this. And so then he says, "Well, there's some discussion. Y'all might not have jobs next year. They may be eliminating
Wow.
your position." And I'm like, "What the Jimmy Jean sausage is going on?" with
Okay.
this,
Okay, that's the best phrase ever.
right? I'm like, this is May. This is May, and this is just coming
Yeah.
up now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I went home honestly thinking I didn't have a job. Look, I turned in my
Mm.
keys, my devices. I said, it's been
Wow.
great working here. I'm out, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, I got a phone call a week before ISTE saying everything is good. You want to come back, the job is yours. But from then, I knew that I could not put my sole livelihood in the hands of my district,
Mhm.
right? I enjoy working there.
Mhm.
I enjoy the people there, but I cannot just turn everything over to them because I don't control budgets. I don't control decisions. I
Mhm.
don't control whether or not, you know, they see the benefit of me in general. And so
Mm.
from there, I
Mm.
took a different approach to the job and to how I see myself, right? So now I see myself as a business of one.
Okay.
And I
Ooh,
look at
tell us about
mhm.
that. What does that mean?
That means that I am unto myself a business. And
Mm.
so I am quote unquote contracted out to the district. And they are going to
Mm.
receive my services and I'm going to receive a pay and benefits, etc. But I'm also going to be looking at other things. So whether am writing this book, I put out a documentary, or I do consulting work, everything is approaching for me as I am a business of one and I control what happens. So I'm going to be intentional about the work that I do and how I approach everything.
Right.
And
Mhm.
if the district decides, hey, we don't want you anymore, um, it's going to sting, but I'm not going to mope around and be like, well, what am I going to do now? It's going to be, I have these other things in the fire. And now let's
Mhm.
come up with a plan to pivot to do something else. And,
Mhm.
just, from that experience, some other things, just being about, how can I leverage everything, that I do and everything that I learn. And that's one of the things I tell teachers too is, a lot of teachers complain about certain types of PD. And I
Mhm.
tell them, no, you sop up that PD like a biscuit. Anything your district gives you, you take. Any
Mhm.
certification your district can offer you, you take. And you
Mm.
absorb it and you master it because you don't know if what you've learned or that Orton Gillingham certification you may get may turn into a job outside your district. So you take
Mhm.
every opportunity to learn on their dime,
Mm.
right? So you can put those skills in your toolkit for the next level.
Sure, sure. I'm curious because I've witnessed it and experienced it a little myself. Did you receive criticism at all as you were doing some of those things? Your book, your documentary, your podcast. Like, talk to me a little bit about how the people around you within your district reacted to that, and how did you navigate that?
I haven't heard anything. My boss knows that I do consulting. I'm assuming at
Hmm.
this point they know about the book because everything's on social media.
Sure.
And I have given my book, to some
Mm.
teachers,
Yeah.
but no one has come to me and said, "Hey, you tone it down," or "We don't like this," because I'm very careful about what I say. Right? I never criticize the
Hmm.
district, and
Mhm.
even when I'm talking to people, I make it very clear that I don't make any decisions about purchases or
Sure.
etc. That's somebody above me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So everything is just honest, upfront, transparent, and so I've never had anyone say anything. It's been other teachers on social media. It's also been a company, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and since we out here, uh, Fried Friday at Tech. I
Mhm.
applied for a job there,
Mhm.
And in the email response of them not bringing me on, they talked about how you have your own brand,
Mm.
and we don't know how that is going to fold into ours, which I was like, cool. Like, I'm not shrinking myself
Mm.
for you because that's
Mhm.
their company, right?
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
not going to diminish what I got going on just to be palatable or acceptable for anyone else. Because again, as a business of one, those people can let you go at any moment,
Sure.
right? So I just have to be myself and continue to build my brand. And the one thing that really gets me about people who push back on the brand in general, right? The simplest definition I've ever heard is your reputation. Like, what do people say about you when you're not in the room?
Mhm.
Or I'll take it a step further and say, when people Google you, what do they see?
Mhm.
And so you should not have a problem with people wanting to be intentional about when I'm not in the room, what are people saying about me? Or when people Google me, what do they see? Are they seeing me presenting at conferences? Are they seeing me writing these blogs? Are
Mhm.
they seeing me do these amazing things? Or are they seeing me at Cabo on the beach get my twerk on? Um, so it's that sort of thing of just being intentional about in different spaces where your name may come up or people may see you. What do they see?
Sure. Sure. Um, so I'm really intrigued on really what would you say to educators who may say back to you, I don't have time to build my brand. I don't have time for a side business. I don't that's it's too much effort. I don't have the capacity to do that. I think some people maybe see that as being, like it's negative. What would you say to those educators? Like, talk to me about like kind of how you coach them. If they come to you and they're like, I love the idea, Dr. Will, and I think I might want to do that, but I'm real hesitant. What do you say to them?
Well, you always have time, but you also need to pick the medium that works best for you, right? So if you are a natural writer and you love to write, then I say get a Substack, create a blog. If
Mm-hmm.
video is your thing, again, vlog, get on YouTube, or if you just enjoy having these conversations, you can do a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you have to do something that, in my opinion, when it comes to content creation, those things is that you see somebody at a conference, you meet them, you go away. People start to Google folks, right? And so
Yeah.
you want to make sure that as much as you can, what comes up on you in a Google search is something that you have put out versus something that other folks have put out, right? And because you can't control what other folks do, but like if
You
you were
can't.
somewhere
Yep.
at
Yeah.
a party or somewhere and you did some stuff and someone took some photos and that stuff was on Facebook or somewhere else, hey, that can come up.
I mean,
But
that's a whole digital citizenship conversation, right? Like, I mean, when you're
yeah,
talking branding yourself for sure. So while you were talking, I actually did a Google search on you, Dr. Will. And I have always recommended this exercise since probably 2012, 2013. I used to do this with high school students when I was teaching them digital citizenship and really just the digital footprint. I would have them go through an exercise. I would give them specific names. They would use my name to search. Highly recommend that you do a pre-search on all the names that you're having your students search, because there is all kinds of information out there, and you want them to kind of understand how to vet the information. But when I search Dr. Will, this is what I get. I get your Instagram. I get the Edupreneur, your website, your podcast, your YouTube channel, your LinkedIn, which also does a shout out to EduMatch, and we can talk about that before we go as well. You were on the My EdTech Life podcast. You have your own podcast, and then there is your book on Amazon. Um, everything I can tell when I search your name, I can tell you did that intentionally. Otherwise, that's not what the results would be, right? How do you go about, while I'm looking up Rick,
Oh
how do
God,
you
that's
go
not going to be
about
good.
how do you go about doing that? How do you go about deciding how you're going to put things out there? I mean, I think that is something for teachers. Everybody has like a LinkedIn or a Facebook, but how did you determine what results were going to pop up? How were you intentional about that? Was it all at one time, or did you do it little by little?
Everything just came, at its own time. So uh, I've always had social media spaces. I was on one platform until somebody bought it. Uh,
Oh, we know. What a
and it
trending sentence that is lately.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm out of here. This place is burning down. So I deleted my account. And that was one of my favorite places.
Yep.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so, and that was, I would find a lot of guests and share things,
Sure.
there as well. So, but I'm using LinkedIn and of
Mhm.
course Facebook. And so my podcast is sort of the first thing that I'm sort of leading with because of the discussions that I have. And then, with Riverside, as you know, I can just
Mhm.
break up the different clips and then I put them on different
Hmm.
social media sites. And I try to drop little golden nuggets. And from time to time, I write an article on LinkedIn. But everything is about being intentional about the certain pockets that I will release.
Mhm.
Because I was like, man, I'm not popping up on these ed tech lists anymore. I said, okay, so
Oh.
let me do a little something to remind folks like I'm still in the game.
Mhm.
Because
Hmm.
now everyone associates me with entrepreneurship, which I have no issue with.
Sure.
But it's like, hey, I'm still in these streets, people. So now I'm trying to put some more stuff about.
Your boots on the ground, Dr. Will. You're still boots on the
Hmm.
ground as always. I think so. It's interesting. So I've done a Rick Google search, and for Rick, first of all, his LinkedIn comes in, then
Well,
his
that's positive.
website. So he has his
Good.
website portfolio, Instagram, your X account, which you still have, and then Dribble comes up, and then a podcast episode you were on, lots of Dribble, and then I actually have an alert on my name. I've had that for years. I don't think that's a bad suggestion for educators who are listening, to go in and put an alert on your name for when something is posted about you or you start showing up. It will alert you so you can go review that and vet that.
I honestly thought
Mine,
that when you said alert that there was a problem.
no,
I thought that's what you were referring to when you
there's no
said that.
problem. There's no problem.
I was
You
like,
can go
there's a
into
red
you can,
flag for Tisha Poncio that's propping up every
no.
time.
I mean, I'm sure some people think that. But in Google, you can put that alert. So I've set an alert and it will alert me and tell me if there's something new. But for me, my website is first, then my LinkedIn. It's really interesting how it's curating based on, it's different for each of us. I have my website, then I have the LinkedIn, then ASCD comes up. Don't even know, like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know that I intentionally did that. Then Instagram, and then a ton of videos, Wakelet videos, podcast videos, General Assembly. So I once did a session with General Assembly, and then a ton of pictures. But it's really interesting kind of how it curates things about you. So that is my activity. That's my CTA for anybody listening. Go Google yourself. What is coming up, and is that the stuff you want to see? Is that the stuff that you want other people to see? I think that's
Mm.
really, really key. So I want to talk, because we've been going on, I knew we would for a while, but I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, and the skills. I say this all the time, Dr. Will, teachers have the entrepreneurship skills already. Like, when you really break down everything they're doing, every single one of them has the skills that they are repeating on a day-to-day basis, and they can create any business. They can create their own brand. They've already got everything inside of them. One of the things that Rick and I talk about in our book is student entrepreneurship, and how to bring in some of those skills into the classroom so that they are leaving school with this set of skills that they can utilize, whether they go to college or they just hop into a job and start a career. So I'm wondering, what do you say to the teachers? Because it's going to go back to mindset a little bit. The teachers who are like, I don't have time to do that for myself. I believe that if you can't do it for yourself and you can't think through that, you're never going to be able to get your students there. It has to be something that you're already internally working on. So what are some easy ways, just really easy entry points for teachers to teach students entrepreneurship skills that they already possess? What would you say to those teachers?
Um, I would tell teachers is start with helping your students uncover their gift,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this proverb that says in Proverbs, your gift will make room for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to teachers, even about entrepreneurship, I say start with your receipts. Start with what you're already good at, what that people are coming to you for. And
Mm,
when you help students uncover their gift and allow them to then, when you're talking about how do we provide evidence of understanding in the classroom, allow them to use that gift to do that, they start to cultivate those gifts. They start to
Mm-hmm.
see themselves differently, have a lot more confidence, and you can then tie that into maybe different career paths or what have you, so that they see the world much larger than what they may see at the moment,
Yes.
right? And
mhm,
so,
Yes.
for me, it's about, because a lot of times in schools, because the measurement is test scores, right?
Yes.
You tend to focus on what a student isn't doing well. You look at the gaps, you look at the deficits, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not looking at the strengths. We're not looking at the gifts. We're not looking at the talents. And the reality is, a kid, on whatever test, may be proficient, and that student may not ever go to that next level based upon that test that you're using as that metric.
Right.
However, in these other areas, that student is phenomenal. And what you don't want is for that student to graduate and not know that they're phenomenal, especially at
That.
that, right? And so when you can do that and bring that into your classroom and bring in these projects and different exercises and different things where kids can see
mhm,
the greatness within themselves, to me, that's the first step you can do. Because I tell
Yeah.
teachers, this is not about creating a startup in your classroom. This is about you taking risks, right? This is
Yeah.
about you
Yeah.
thinking outside of the multiple choice.
Yes.
This is about you
mhm,
thinking beyond even the test score, for you to say, hey, let's just rip the band-aid off and have a great time and do these things. Because the reality is, if your students know something well enough, they will have a better chance at the test score without you, again, having to drill and skill and do all this other stuff to death. But
Sure.
aside from that, what is your true purpose and what you're doing? If it's just the test score, right? If it's just the test score, go home, right? Go home.
Listen, that's it right there. If
yeah,
it's justice, I could not agree with you more. It's interesting. As you were talking, I hear you saying like your students are whole students. We talk about whole child, learning. I think that especially in this age of AI, we have to remember as educators, as parents, as community members, it is everybody's responsibility. It's not just a teacher. Yes, the teachers with them probably the majority of the day and more than their own parents. But I think it is all of us that has to remember it's the whole. I say often to Rick, we can blame the generation, you could be like Gen Alpha doesn't know how to do this, this, and this. We were in charge. We
yeah,
are the reason that they may not know how to do that, right? So I think it's really important for us to take accountability and responsibility. One of the things we talk about in our book, and we hit on that because I agree with that sentiment so much. Um, academic excellence is something that is going to be in schools. It is something that we should all try to achieve to. As a neurodivergent, I struggled in school. I didn't learn the way that everybody else did. And often I still get punished as an adult for not learning the way that everybody else does, and not teaching the way everybody else does, and, not communicating that way. But there are still, I'm a whole person. That's just a little piece of where I'm struggling. So Rick and I came up with this framework in our book called AIM.
Mm-hmm.
And the first part is academic excellence, because yes, we want our students to be successful, but we also need to know that they are not going to be perfect. And some of them are going to miss the mark. And if all, like you said, if all we're doing is looking for that academic excellence, we might as well go home, because on top of that is interpersonal skills. Are we teaching them how to effectively communicate? Are we teaching them how to collaborate with each other? How to be empathetic and kind and service oriented, and really looking at different perspectives in the world. And then the third part of that is the mastery of self, which is what I heard you start with. You said they need to get to know who they are. And mastery of self for us is in our book, specifically for students to embrace that entrepreneur mindset. Is something that Rick and I practice doing this podcast. I'm sure that you have gone through this as well in your journey as an entrepreneur, but sense of belonging, self-reliance, reflectiveness and self-awareness, being resilient. You've said all of these things: confident, self-disciplined, open-minded, curious, goal setting, but not goal setting for perfection, goal setting so you have an aim. It all works together as a whole. And I think, and we talk about this in our book, which was why I feel like our books really complement each other, because we are also telling the teachers, in order to get your students here, you also are going to have to look at your interpersonal skills and your mastery of self, because you are modeling that for them every day. And it's not to be harsh on teachers. I'm not. Like, I remember being that teacher, and then it was like one day I woke up and I went, oh, I'm asking them to do things I'm not doing. I have to start doing it with them, right? And that is really what flipped the script. That's what we started with today. It's what flipped the script for me and made me very aware of how can I get my students thinking this way. And you're right, you don't have to do a startup in your classroom. Neither one of us are saying that in our books, right? We just want you to sprinkle in some of these entrepreneurship skills and get them thinking. You said it best, Dr. Will. Get them thinking outside of the right now and what's happening right now in this classroom, in this school, right? Like in this town. Get them out there thinking about other things. And I think, we've talked to a lot of students on this podcast. We have some episodes coming up after yours with really early 20s students who have gone through school and then went to college and then now are rethinking their entire career, because now they've gotten out in the world and gone, oh, that's not actually what I want to do. This is going to fit me better. And how can we teach them and show them and discover those things earlier, right? So that they can maybe save some money on 1, 2, or 3 degrees. I don't know. This is such a great conversation. Rick, do you have any specific questions? I know I always feel like I'm kind of taking over because I get so excited. And it isn't that I'm trying to take over, but I just get so excited about what our guests are saying.
I mean, from my side, definitely is. You're completely taking over, obviously. I just sit here and do the introductions and that's
look
it.
Pretty,
no,
as you say.
I look pretty. I'm the looks of the podcast. If we didn't have the video version, then I literally bring nothing. No, I do have one question which I'm quite curious about. Obviously, you've helped so many educators win contracts, district contracts, and for starters, that's showing the capabilities of educators, that they're not just there in the classroom, they're not just in those 4 walls, they're breaking out of that, they're being salespeople within their own district, which is phenomenal to see. What I'm curious about is what do most educators fundamentally misunderstand about selling to school districts? So what do you find is the struggles or misinterpretations when they're actually trying to sell something to their school district, for example?
Don't fall in love with your solution. Fall in love with the problem, right? Because you may think my thing is the greatest. What I do is this. But if the school district doesn't need it or someone else doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need it, you're not selling anything. So
Mm-hmm.
fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve and then listen to feedback you have
Mm-hmm.
because there's something called the ask method, which is in my book, but find out what districts really need or a conference or wherever your ideal audience. And then from there, look at your receipts, what you're great at, and come up with a solution for that. Don't go the other way around. Don't say, well, because I love Google or because I love this, I'm going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
this and no one paying for it. You just got a hobby uh, that you're spending money on. So yeah, fall in love with the problem and not the solution.
I
Yeah.
knew you were gonna have these like mic drop moments. I love when it happens because I feel like I'm waiting for it and then it comes when I don't expect. What if we fall in love with the problem? That's such a great question for everybody listening. What
Mm-hmm.
if you fall in love with the problem, not your solution? I feel like we should all take that advice, Dr. Will. That's so good.
Oh,
That's so
100%.
good. Listen, we could go on and on talking. We know you're traveling. We've been on. I'm going to give you a last little moment. What best advice do you have for educators? Because we're coming into the summer months, especially in North America, the US. So what advice do you have for any educator who's going into their summer months? Because we all know that they are burnt out and exhausted and tired. What is something they can do during the summer that you think will lead them into this entrepreneurial mindset?
Selfishly, I say about my book. Uh,
Yeah,
Of
we will
course.
put that in. We will put that in the notes for sure.
because it walks you through first thinking about your mindset. Are you
Mhm.
really ready for this? Because this journey is going to be something unlike you
Ooh,
have
yes.
never done before.
Mm,
And it's not about the amount of work you put in, though you should put in work, but it's not about that because we know
Right.
working in a school district, if I show up, I'm getting a check regardless. I can have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, but that check is still going to show up. But as an entrepreneur, you could put in 80 hours a week
Yes.
and not see a dime, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So, totally different. So, do you have the mindset, right? Understanding the legal things that come with
Mm,
creating a business. Some different states have different
yes.
ways of how do you incorporate, and then even how you incorporate, there's tax implications behind that. So,
I
really,
was gonna say, Dr. Will, you are so right, and I'm only laughing because if we've done it, we know if you've created an LLC, if you are doing taxes on the side, this is something Rick and I do. We plan it in our weekends. You're right. I think so. I think the call to action is exactly what you said. Buy Dr. Will's book. He's gonna walk you through. Right? He's going to walk you through the questions. I think it's a good beginner. Like if you just think that's what you want to do, I think reading your book is a great segue into that. It probably is going to make you self-reflect and go real
mhm.
deep. And if you want it enough, and then I'm going to tag on to that. I would also encourage you to buy our book. And I'm going to put something out here. Rick didn't even know I was going to do it. But if you comment and you comment below on any platform and
You're giving me more work, aren't you?
let us know why you would need a book for your students as well. I'm going to toss in and randomly pick someone, and I'm going to mail our book, Learners Today, Leaders Tomorrow. And Dr. Will, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if you wanted to do that same thing, we can do that. But I believe both of those go hand in hand. I believe what you're telling the teacher and kind of walking them through personally, and then they're going to read our book and it's going to make sense then because they're going to go, oh, this is what Dr. Will said. And now here's how I'm going to apply it with my students. Here's some little pieces. I do think they work together. I would say, yeah, I mean, if you're a reader, definitely do that. If not, if you are just an audio learner like me, go listen to Dr. Will Will's podcast and our podcast. There's
Mhm.
plenty of conversations out there while you're on the beach or while you're doing your marathons or whatever you're doing this summer. Maybe you're just bed rotting like I did in the
Yeah,
summer
yeah.
after a school year. You can listen with your eyes closed, right? So, no, this has been fantastic, Dr. Will. I just think you have so much to share. And I'm so, so grateful that you took time to come on our podcast to share with all of
Mm.
our listeners.
And
Rick?
thank you, thank
I
you.
mean,
I have one last thing to say, if I
oh,
may.
please, please.
Yes.
Educators, go buy your own device.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not watching your pocket. I don't
Yep.
know what's in your bank account.
Yep.
But go buy your own device
Great advice.
because you want to own what you create.
Yes.
And if you're
Mhm.
using that
Yes.
district laptop, you're using district resources,
Yes.
they own it. Now, they may
Yeah,
not
they
come
do.
after you like a corporation will, but if they
Right.
decide you're
Yeah.
selling, I see you out here selling books, and you wrote that book on their laptop,
That is great advice, actually. And I'm
Yeah.
going to tag on to that. I don't think people know how important that is. Rick and I, actually, when we were writing our book, we both worked at Wakelet, right? And we were very intentional and we made it very clear. We were not writing the book on company time, on
Yeah.
company devices. We were writing our book on the weekends and at night on our own device, on our
Mhm.
own Zoom account that we pay for, right? That
and
is some of the best advice that you can give an educator. Absolutely, in that realm, when you get that device, you're going to
It's
go
amazing.
probably create a new email account, Google account, where all that is stored so that it's yours. Absolutely. Gosh.
Yeah.
So much
Just
great
mic
information, Dr.
drops.
Will. We're going to have you back.
all
We're going to
right.
have you back. We're going to do some more, like maybe top 5 tips for teachers in the new school year, something like that. I think we need to have you back because you have so much to share and we're just so grateful to you. Thank
Thank
you
you. I
so
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's been great. And Dr. Will, if people want to follow you, where's best to follow you?
LinkedIn, Instagram, at I am Dr. Will. So they'll see some things that I'm posting, where I'm, sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'm presenting on AI for grandparents today, or
It's awesome.
video clips of my things. I gotta let people know I'm still in these streets.
Love it. You're still in the streets, Will.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Will, for joining us on today's episode. All the links to all Dr. Will's socials, including a link to his book, will be in the description below. So please go check it out right after this video. And if you've enjoyed it, like it, follow us, subscribe, comment anything that you'd like to hear in future episodes. And until next week, we'll see you then. Bye for now.